Greetings, everyone. Oh, this ought to be fun. We're going to talk about the most successful franchise in the NHL right now. Joking, totally joking, unfortunately. It's Paul Edmonds, the voice of the Winnipeg Jets. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Simmer. How are you?
What the
Thanks for having
hell?
me on.
What the hell's going on?
Well, that's open-ended. I mean, certainly as we discuss this or as we start to record this,
Uh-huh.
the Jets have lost 8 in a row, and it's a for the franchise in Winnipeg. It's a record, and it's not quite the Thrashers Winnipeg Jets record, but they're getting close. And it's the anatomy of a slump. I mean, you have some injuries, and then you're not playing very good defensively, and the specialty teams dry up, and then you're not scoring goals when you're playing better defensively, and you lose your goaltender for 12 games, and it just is spiraled to the point where you talk to the players and the coaching staff, and the frustration is just at a level I've never seen before in the 12 years full time that I've covered this franchise, and the other 3 years since they returned to Winnipeg that I was around being part time and in that room. So it's been interesting. I mean, one night is not like the other nights because it has some carryover to some of the things that have gone wrong. But for instance, the last game against the Toronto Maple Leafs, you got a 4-1 lead, and they're just stomping all over the Leafs in Toronto. And then the second half of the game, they just can't find their way to making a pass or protecting the middle of the ice. And they give up goals, and Austin Matthews scores a hat trick. And then you're left in bewilderment again about how this happened. So, again, the anatomy of a slump is very interesting because it's taken a number of different angles to get to an 8 game losing skid.
I was in the media room having a meal before the Seattle-Nashville game last night, watching that third period unfold. And of course, it ends kind of with your backup goalie, Eric Comrie, fumble pucking up the puck and costing him essentially a goal that I think that was the
That was the
last one.
winner.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the winner by Matthews.
So that right there is just significant and a sign of how things have been going for them. Now, on the bright side, it's a healthy roster right now, and the conferences are very compact. So if you go on a typical what we should be seeing from the Winnipeg Jets, a 6 or 7 game win streak, how you doing? You're right there in the wild card again. So is that really the way to look at it when you consider you have an entire second half of hockey season left?
So that would be the way that most of the most optimistic people would look at it. I would reduce it down and say that you've got to get off of this schneid and win that first game. And
Yeah.
how you do it is going to be very important as well. Do you get a break or two, or do you just dominate in that game? We'll see what happens because the next one on the schedule is Ottawa. And Ottawa is not in a playoff position right now, but they do have more points and a better record than the Jets. So right now they would be the better team. But here's what you need to do. And you can't look right at that playoff line and say, well, we're 7 or 9 points or 8 points back. And, we've got a game or two in hand. What you need to do is you need to win a couple of games, and then you need to climb back toward 500. Once you get to 500, that's your jumping off point. Because right now, when you look at where you are, 5 games under 500 at 15 and 20, you not only have to get back to 500 before you start to climb in the standings, but all of these teams above you, there's 7 teams above you to climb back into one of those two wild card spots. So it has to be an incremental short term climb. You need to win some games, get closer to 500, get to 500. You might leapfrog 1 or 2 teams as you go along, and you're starting to feel better about yourself. That's the other thing, too, is you've lost 10 one-goal games this year. These were games that the Winnipeg Jets were winning hands down last year. It didn't matter if they were down by a goal or tied in the last 2 minutes. You just knew last season, as the President's Trophy winners, that they were going to find a way to score a goal to tie it up or win it late. That hasn't happened this year. And that's been, I think, the biggest thing when you look at the problems for the Jets this season, and especially since November the 1st. What has been the common factor as to why they're not winning games? Not scoring enough goals would be, for me, if you ask me one particular item, what is it? They're not scoring enough. When you look at their goal differential for a team that is right now 5 games below NHL 500. Their goal differential is only -9.
Yeah.
There's teams in the Eastern Conference that are leading their division
Right.
that have a goal differential with a dash in front of it,
Yeah. It's
right? I
crazy.
mean, that's unheard of. Usually, teams that make the playoffs have an above a plus line goal differential. Okay.
Yep.
So, what does that say to you? Well, you're defending okay, your goaltending's okay, you're just not scoring enough goals. So, for Winnipeg to get back into this, the confidence level has to be buoyed by a couple of wins. And then maybe once that starts, you start to roll again because I have seen how the frustration level has really impacted this group. And even against the Leafs, you wonder why in the last 30 minutes, particularly in that last 20 minutes, the third period, why they came off their game because they haven't had a lead like that in so long. They forgot how to defend it, even though they defended them with aplomb last year so many times.
Yeah.
But last year might have been 100 years ago for the way this team is playing right now. So we could talk a little bit about goal scoring and the fact that it's the one line that's doing all the scoring, and they haven't had a lot of secondary scoring. And there's a reason for that, to be honest with you.
Do we miss Nick Ehlers that much?
And that's the reason, Simmer. I mean, look, one player never makes a team, but a number of players spread out throughout your forward core really help your team.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we could really say when Nikolaj left for other pastures, certainly in Carolina, and Winnipeg tried to sign him. They did. And Nick just wanted, and it wasn't anything against Winnipeg or Canada. He just wanted a different, he just wanted a change of scenery.
Yeah.
Now he has some family who lives down in Florida, so Carolina is a little closer for that family to get back and forth and for him to go and see that family. It made sense, right? And then he's also with a Stanley Cup contending team, not that he wasn't here. And so what Winnipeg thought was, and this is, of course, my own opinion, but I think there's some validity to it. Well, what we'll do is we'll sign Gus Nyquist and we'll also get Jonathan Taves. And between the two of them, we'll sort of do it by committee and we'll get those 30 goals back and have that impact on that second line. And it didn't work.
Right.
And because Nikolaj Ehlers is a very special, dynamic player. Dynamic is a word that we use a lot, certainly in hockey terms and in hockey parlance. But I will say this, what he does is he had scored 30 goals a number of times for the Winnipeg Jets. He was over 20 goals seemingly every year that he played for the 10 years that he was here, with the exception of maybe his first year when he scored 15, and these are all off the top of my head. But he had such an ability for the Jets to break the puck out by himself out of his own zone and then be the zone entry by himself with speed. The
Yep.
speed is what they've lacked on that second line. The other part that I think has really, with the two guys that he played with, Vladislav Nemesnikov and Cole Perfetti, and the reasons they're struggling this year, Perfetti has, I think, only 2 goals so far, and Vladislav Nemesnikov hasn't scored in like 24 or 25 after really having a hot start with 6, is that Nikolaj played with those guys and he would draw others toward him and would free up space for Nemesnikov and Perfetti so that they could have a little bit more time to make a play. They could have more time to get to another open area, like taking another stride and a half. So all of these things compiled have really, when you looked at it, said Nikolaj Ehlers is a big hole that the Jets haven't filled this year. They thought they did, and I'll be the first one to admit I thought they did as well. But as the season has gone along into 39 and 40 games now, you've realized that there was no filling that hole with Nikolaj Ehlers other than signing Nikolaj Ehlers.
Right. Um, so the Kraken go through a slump in Seattle. Nobody even says boo. A butterfly doesn't even fly off a bush. Like, ooh, Lane Lambert. Toronto, they slump naturally. Oh my God, are we getting rid of Chief? Winnipeg, I put them somewhere in between. It is a Canadian market. So has there been Scott Arniel talk?
Well, I'm sure there has. I don't get a sense at all. Scott is a very intelligent hockey guy.
Yeah.
And I know that it's been such a dichotomy between year one and year two of his head coaching tenure back in the National Hockey League after some things that he admits that he learned over a dozen years ago when he had a decent year and then not so good a year in Columbus in his first kick of the can here.
Yeah.
I don't believe that there's going to be a threat of Scott Arniel or any of the other coaches this year. But I would say this: if you don't get it turned around for next season, and look, there's still a half a season to go, then you're probably looking at making a change that way. But I think Scott's brought in a real good game plan here. And when Winnipeg plays it, and for the most part, even in the last 5 games of this 8 game losing skid, they played pretty well. They've just come off a few points that have cost them games. And of course, as we talked about in the first answer I gave you, and I took that answer out for dinner, by the way, and a movie. You know, when you're slumping, the one mistake, where does
Yeah.
it end up? In the back
Yeah.
of your net.
Yeah.
Other teams could make that one mistake 3 times once each period and get away with it because it's a crossbar, it's a post, it's just wide by an inch, or somebody gets a toe on it or whatever. So no, I don't believe that there's any
That,
threat here for a coaching change. I'm sure that the masses back in Winnipeg and southern Manitoba would like to see something drastic, because when things aren't going very well, the fandom will always, fire the coach, get rid of the GM. The hot dog vendor needs to go as well. Like, let's just get rid of them all, right? That's the easy thing to do.
yeah.
But that's not necessarily how this works. And here's the thing, you need continuity when you're building a program. And Scott provided that in the first year that he came in with Rick Bowness, and then he took over that and proceeded to add on to that last year. There's
Yeah.
been a falling off point. And now I think that everybody wants the opportunity, and I think they should be given and granted the opportunity to try to pull this thing back up.
Right. Uh, Hellebuck to the Olympics for America, for the U.S. No surprise, whether he's slumping or not, or whatever his issue is, whether he was healthy or not, he's got to be one of their guys. And then no Shifley for Canada. Do we know how he's dealing with that? I guess it's only been what?
Yeah, well, it's day 2 now, and by the time anybody might watch this, it'll be maybe day 3, day 4. But he was asked about it finally after the game, post game, on what it would have been, I guess, Thursday night in Toronto,
Yep.
and he referred to it as "quote unquote" a dark day.
Huh.
And you know, I was asked about it. I don't know that the sting of it is any less than the first time it happens when you get snubbed for 4 nations.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you that a guy that I've seen come through this organization as the number 1 draft pick, the first ever draft pick of the Winnipeg Jets 2.0, Mark's game has really evolved. He really took off under Rick Bowness and Scott Arniel 4 years ago. He became more of a 200-foot player. And I mean that. He wanted to be considered to be one of the elite. He wanted people to talk about him like they talk about McDavid and McKinnon and Crosby and others. And he's worked himself, in my opinion, because I see him in the small market NHL of Winnipeg and the smallest of the 32 teams and population size and all of that TV market. I see him every day, and I see the takeaways and I see the ability, because he's bought in to coming back, stripping people of the puck on a back check, and then turning it north and away you get to go. And if you want to crisscross through the blue lines 56 times, go ahead and do that, but just come back and get the puck. And he's done that. I think that it's been a real blow to him. I don't know what this is, Rob, about why he has been snubbed 2 years in a row. I can almost say that it's palatable to say that the snub last year, okay, all right, John Cooper, okay, had his own guys, and they end up winning the gold medal. You'd be okay maybe if he took the whole team back again this year, but they made changes. And Mark Scheifele wasn't part of that. And I don't know what more he needed to do to try to make that team. Now, he is going to stay in protocol. He is going to be on their auxiliary list.
Yeah.
So if somebody does get hurt, he might get the call, and he's hoping for that for sure. But I have talked to some people that have felt that Team Canada has had a very Eastern Conference bias to the way they have selected the team. And that could be because John Cooper coaches in the East and he's taken some of his own guys. I mean, I look at Mark Scheifele, I look at Sam Bennett. When you look at the last 2 years of a Stanley Cup run by the Florida Panthers, who would you like to have on your team when the chips are really down? A guy like Sam Bennett. And a guy for me like Mark Scheifele. He wins puck battles. He competes. He can play certainly at center or right wing. And Mark Scheifele, I'm going to tell you, and again, this is me lobbying or being an advocate for him on maybe, I guess, ears that won't be heard in what I'm saying. But if you wanted him to play a grind game as a fourth liner, he could do that as well. I think he just wanted to be included, and I feel bad for him because he's not for the second straight year. But look, there's a lot to celebrate with the Winnipeg Jets when it comes to people that are going to the Olympics. You've got, as you mentioned, Connor Hellebuyck, Kyle Connor, both for the Americans. You've got Josh Morrissey going for Canada, and Nino Niederreiter will play for Switzerland as well.
Right. What just popped into my head there about something? Oh, if you'd like, I'll text this link when we're done to Coop, and he can watch it. I'll put the time.
I don't think you'll have the time.
I'll send it to Coop.
Well, again, I mean, these guys have done their due diligence. And I will say this, the caveat to all of this is, if you want to start an argument, pick an all-star team, right? So that's essentially what they've done. And it's a great debate, but I see the guy every day, and I see how he is evolved in his game and how improved his game overall has become in his early 30s.
Right.
And I really believe that Mark deserved to be there, and Mark would have been a very good addition to Team Canada, and he still might. Like I said, he's on that list to maybe rotate in if something happens to a player or two. But the fact that he's not one of the 25 to begin with, I think, really stings him.
I can text it to Army too if you want. I'm doing text name dropping right now. By the way, caveat.
When you drop my name on them,
did you say
they're going to go who?
Caveat? How did you pronounce
it?
Caveat.
Yeah.
By the way, Kyle Connor, real quick. This is a chance to redeem himself because he was basically a no-show at Four Nations.
Well, I guess so. I mean, you got to remember he didn't play in the final game against Canada, and they needed some goals. And here's a guy that scored 40, and Mike Sullivan decided to sit him. Well, I will be very interested to see what happens if they get into an exact scenario once again. But
I hope not. That means he would not have been performing well in the preliminaries.
But Kyle's the kind of guy, Rob, you covered baseball. I covered baseball. We both cover hockey. This is one of those scenarios where, for me, Kyle Connor is this type of guy. Maybe you don't really see him for 58 minutes of the game. Some nights you do because he's just got the Midas touch. But then all of a sudden it's one slingshot from the slot and he scores the game-winning goal when it's 2-2 with 91 seconds remaining in the game. It reminds me of the guy that's the home run hitter that hits third or fourth in your lineup or in fifth. He's done nothing all night. He's 0 for 3, 2 strikeouts, pop up, and guess what? He steps up with 2 on in the bottom of the ninth and hits it to right center, and you win the game. And guess what? He's the player of the game. And he's had one swing and had a 3-run homer, but he's the player of the game. That's the way Kyle Connor is, and that's the way these stars are. Sometimes you don't see them every night, but when, again, the chips are down, push comes to shove, when you look at a scorecard or a box score that says, okay, who had the game-winning goal or who had the game-winning hit, it's usually a star that does that in the finest moment. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle Connor finds himself in one of those situations if he's given the opportunity to score a big goal for the Americans.
All right. Well, just remember they're all stars at this thing. They're all stars. And when you say all-star game, it's not really an all-star game because they are putting in some guys in the third, fourth line scenario that, well, I guess they'd be all-stars, but different dynamics here when it comes to this is going to be a war. And I think the rink's going to be, can you imagine this? 4 feet narrower? It's going to be redonkulous trying to get through the neutral zone.
3 feet is shorter. 3 feet shorter.
Shorter, so, not narrower, right?
Right.
Shorter.
So
I don't mind shorter.
It will be 197 feet as opposed to 200 feet in length.
I thought it was going to be narrower.
Well, you also have to
Shorter
remember the Olympic size ice surface is 100 feet wide
instead of 85.
instead of 85. But there is a hybrid that sometimes they play on that goes between the 85 and the 100. Okay.
Right.
That would be the international size.
Right.
But no, what I understand is it's 3 feet in length
Shorter.
short. So
197.
197, what they'll do is they'll just bring the blue lines in a little tighter
Yeah.
by a foot and a half and still have your both
Neutral zone.
defensive and attacking zone be the same size as you normally would in the NHL.
Hey, it'll be like a flashback to Boston Garden, the odd Olympia, short little rinks with tight corners. Why
You are
not?
dating yourself now. You really are. The Olympia, that was 2 rinks ago in Detroit.
I grew up going to that rink.
You went through the Joe Louis. I mean,
I
there's
saw
people who don't
Gordy.
remember the Joe Louis.
I saw Gordie Howe play at the Olympia. That's how old I am. I was a wee nipper, but I saw him. And then he was hanging out, talking to people at the concession stand after the game. That's how much the game has changed. All right, Paulie, great job. I got to load this thing, buddy. We're gonna throw this up there and give people. This is the definitive Winnipeg Jets update. I'll tell you that much.
All right.
Hell of a job. You should go out and get a steak.
I'm going to go out tonight. We're in Ottawa tonight, and we're going to go out and have a little group, little content, radio, television group is going out for a steak night tonight. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Give my love to the group. Say hi to everybody.
I will do that.
And
Thanks for
we'll talk to you soon. Thank you very
Okay,
much. Go Jets, damn it.